Welcome to the Altify Podcast.
You know, sitting down and looking through the notes for today's deep dive, I was immediately reminded of, well, pretty much every single sales kickoff meeting I have ever sat through in my career.
Oh yeah, the classic SKO.
Right. The VP of sales gets up on stage, the intro music is pumping, the lights go down, and there is always that one slide that just completely dominates the screen behind them.
And let me guess, it's a giant bar graph pointing up and to the right.
Exactly. Up and to the right. Always. And the underlying message of that entire week, the drumbeat that everyone marches to, is always the exact same thing. Volume. Just pure volume.
It is the absolute classic mantra, isn't it? Just, more. We need more calls, we need more emails, more meetings logged in the CRM, and ultimately more revenue. Because everyone is just completely obsessed with that gross volume number. The bottom line.
They are. And look, I get it. I really do. The bottom line is what pays the bills. It's what the board cares about. It's what investors care about. But reading through this information on sales velocity, it really struck me that focusing entirely on volume is a bit like a runner just staring dead ahead at the finish line, completely ignoring their actual running form.
Oh, that's a really good way to put it.
Right. Like, you might get there eventually, but you're going to be totally exhausted, your joints will hurt, and you probably won't even clock a very fast time.
That is a perfect analogy. And honestly, that's the exact pivot we need to make today for everyone listening. We really need to stop looking just at the total volume output and start looking under the hood at the how. And that is exactly where this concept of sales velocity comes into play.
Yeah, it's like this hidden metric.
It really is. It's the metric that actually dictates whether or not you are going to hit that bottom line without completely burning out your entire revenue team in the process.
And just to be super clear right up front for you listening, when we say the word velocity, we are not just using some corporate buzzword for like working faster.
No, absolutely not.
We aren't telling you to just talk faster on your Zoom calls or, skip your lunch break so you can send 10 more emails.
Right, please take your lunch breaks. No, sales velocity is actually a physics problem. It's a very specific, tangible mathematical equation. And the premise here is honestly really exciting once it clicks.
Because it shifts the whole paradigm.
Exactly. Instead of trying to just brute force your way to growth, like trying to double your headcount, which is incredibly expensive, or doubling your working hours, which is impossible. You can make these tiny, almost invisible adjustments to 4 very specific levers. And the output of those tiny adjustments grows exponentially.
I just love that approach. I feel so much less like hitting a wall with a hammer and more like actual mechanics, like you're finally tuning a high-performance engine. So let's actually get into this equation. If we were standing at a whiteboard right now, drawing out the physics of sales, what does this formula actually look like?
Okay, so visualize a standard fraction. Just a line across the middle. You have a numerator on the top and a denominator on the bottom. In the numerator, that top part, you essentially have 3 distinct growth engines, and they're all multiplied together.
Okay, so 3 inputs on top. What are the 3?
First, you have the number of opportunities. You can think of this as the pound sign or the hashtag. It is the sheer number of qualified deals that your team is actively working right now.
Makes sense.
Second is the deal value, so the dollar sign. When you actually win a deal, what is the average monetary size of that win? And then the third lever on top is your win rate percentage. Basically, out of all the deals you work, how often do you actually get the signature and close?
Okay, I'm trapping. So that's the number of deals times the deal size times the win rate. I mean, that's the good stuff. That's the revenue engine right there.
It is. But here is where the physics part really kicks in. You draw a line under all of that top line goodness, and you divide it all by the denominator. And that denominator is L, the length of the sales cycle.
Ah, the time component.
Right. It's the average amount of time it takes your team to either win or lose a deal. And because it sits right there in the denominator, it essentially divides your success. Mathematically, the bigger that number gets, meaning the longer it takes you to actually close deals, the smaller your final velocity number becomes.
Okay, I want to pause right there because that is such a crucial mathematical relationship to understand. In basic math, if you divide something by a really big number, the end result shrinks dramatically.
Exactly.
So if your sales cycle just drags on for months and months and months, it honestly doesn't even matter how huge your deal size is on the top of the fraction. The velocity, which translates to the actual revenue you bring in per month, just gets completely crushed.
Precisely. It acts like a drag coefficient on your sales car. You can have this massive, powerful engine, but if you have a giant parachute dragging behind you, and that parachute is called long sales cycle, you just aren't going to go anywhere fast.
Yeah, you're just burning gas.
Mm.
I was looking at the specific math example provided in the analysis we're diving into today, and I have to be completely honest. At first glance, I was a little skeptical.
Really? Why is that?
Well, it just seemed a little too magic wand for me. You know how these theoretical models can be? But then when you actually sit down and run the numbers, the leverage is totally undeniable. Let's walk through that specific scenario so you listening can really picture this.
Let's do it. It's a brilliant case study because it uses very standard, realistic numbers. So imagine a mid-sized B2B sales organization. Let's say they have exactly 50 salespeople on the floor.
Okay, writing this down. 50 reps.
And every single rep has a pretty standard annual quota of $1 million. So the company's total annual target is $40 million.
Got it. The big goal is 40 million.
Now, let's look at their baseline performance today. Let's say currently the whole team works a total of 200 deals. The average size of those deals is $200,000. They have a win rate of 25%, so they are closing about 1 in 4. And their average sales cycle takes 3 months from start to finish.
Okay, let me just do the mental math on that really quick. So 200 deals times 200K times a 25% win rate, and then we divide all of that by the 3-month cycle length. According to the breakdown, that comes out to a sales velocity of exactly $3.33 million per month.
Right. And if you multiply that $3.33 million by 12 months, you get roughly $40 million for the year. So technically, they are hitting their number. The board is probably happy. They are doing fine.
But nobody tunes into a deep dive like this just to learn how to be fine. We want to know how to completely blow that number out of the water.
Exactly. So here's where the strategic shift happens. The leadership team decides they need to grow for the next fiscal year. The old school volume-based approach would be to just go out and hire 50 more people, or maybe just stand on desks and scream at everyone to double their cold calls.
Which usually just leads to massive turnover.
Oh, absolutely. But instead of doing that, this leadership team focuses strictly on the velocity levers. They set a goal to improve each of those 4 variables, just the 4 we talked about, by only 10%.
See, that's the part where my skepticism flared up initially. Is a 10% lift across the board actually realistic for a mature team? Or is that just, consultant talk?
It is actually incredibly achievable because you aren't asking anyone for a massive overnight transformation. You are just asking for marginal gains. Think about it. You aren't telling your reps to magically double their deal size. You're just asking them to go from 200K to 220K.
Which could literally just be adding 1 extra service module or a slightly better tier.
Right. And you aren't asking them to win every single deal they touch. You're just asking them to go from winning 25% to winning 27.5%. That's winning maybe 1 extra deal out of 40.
Okay. When you framed it like that, it does sound highly manageable, just tightening the screws a little bit.
Exactly. And for the denominator, you just shave the sales cycle down from 3 months to 2.7 months. That is literally just closing a deal a week or so faster.
So really small operational changes. But what is the actual impact on the final velocity number?
This is the fun part. When you plug those new, slightly improved numbers back into the formula, the slightly bigger numerator divided by the slightly smaller denominator, the monthly sales velocity jumps from $3.33 million all the way up to $4.93 million.
Wait, that's practically $5 million a month. If you annualize that,
it's basically $60 million a year.
So they went from 40 million to 60 million in revenue. Without doubling headcount, that is a massive jump.
It equates to a 48% total uplift in overall revenue.
That is just wild. You improve the individual inputs by a mere 10%, but your actual output, your revenue, improves by almost 50%. That right there explains why we are spending time talking about this today. It is not a linear progression, it's exponential.
It really shows you exactly where the potential energy is trapped inside your sales system. If you just ignore this formula, you are literally leaving half your potential money on the table.
Okay, I'm completely sold on the math. The formula works. But as we all know, spreadsheets are easy and real life is hard. So I really want to break down the how here. We have these 4 levers: opportunities, deal value, win rate, and cycle length. Let's go through them one by one and figure out how a team actually moves these numbers in the real world.
Let's do it. Where do you want to start?
Let's start right at the top of the fraction. Lever number 1, opportunities, the hashtag. Now, the instinct here for most recs is usually just fill the funnel. If I need a 10% lift in my opportunities, I should probably just go spam 10% more people on LinkedIn today, right?
That is definitely the natural instinct, but it is almost always the wrong move. Think about the math again. If you just start dumping more garbage into the top of your funnel, you might technically increase your number variable, but you're going to completely tank your win rate because the leads are bad.
Oh, right.
And you'll probably increase your cycle lengths too because you're chasing people who don't actually want to buy. So your overall velocity either stays completely flat or it actually drops.
Because you dilute the quality of the pipeline.
Exactly. The strategy here fundamentally has to be quality over quantity. There's this great line in the analysis that really stuck with me. It is far more productive to win 4 out of 7 deals than it is to win 3 out of 10.
I really like that framing because mathematically, you are doing way less administrative work. You're only managing 7 deals in your CRM instead of 10, but you are actually closing more total revenue. So the million-dollar question is, how do we systematically find those 4 out of 7 deals?
It really comes down to what the Altify framework calls rigorous qualification. As a sales professional, you have to be totally willing to weed out the misaligned opportunities before they get a chance to clog up your math. And that requires very specific tactical work up front. One major tactic they emphasize is profiling.
Profiling. It sounds a little bit like detective work.
It honestly is. It's about deeply analyzing a prospect's organization before you even make that first deep engagement. It goes way beyond just asking, hey, do they have a budget? It's asking yourself, is there an actual area of mutual value here?
Right.
If you look at an account and you genuinely can't see where your product adds tangible value before you pick up the phone, you probably shouldn't be making that call.
So it's heavily about doing your homework first. And I assume this philosophy ties directly into targeting as well.
Oh, absolutely. Targeting is about identifying the right people inside that profiled account.
Yeah.
If you are selling a highly technical solution meant for the CTO, but you are spending all your time taking a mid-level manager out to lunch who doesn't even have check signing authority.
You're just wasting time.
Exactly. It's an opportunity that feels real in the moment, but it's a phantom. It's just noise inflating your numerator.
So lever 1 really isn't about more deals. It's strictly about more winnable deals.
Precisely. You have to be ruthless about it.
Let's move over to lever 2, deal value, the $sign. Now, the challenge here feels pretty obvious to me. We are operating in a highly competitive, often saturated market. If I just try to arbitrarily raise my prices by 10% tomorrow, the customer is just going to laugh and sign with my competitor. So how on earth do we increase deal size without just losing the deal entirely?
Well, you definitely don't just raise the price tag on the exact same item. That's a recipe for disaster. Instead, you have to focus on maximizing your footprint within that account. And the core strategy here revolves around a concept called white space analysis.
Yeah, I saw this term in the notes, white space. It sounds very, I don't know, very zen, very minimalist. What does it actually mean in the context of B2B sales?
It's actually a super practical exercise. Imagine drawing a literal map of your key account's tech stack or business operations. The white space is quite literally the blank area on that map where you aren't currently selling to them, but you potentially could be. It's about actively identifying the gaps.
Can you give me a concrete example of how a rep would use that?
Sure. Let's say you're a rep selling CRM software.
Mm.
The customer comes to you and asks for a basic sales tracking module. Now, an average rep will just say, great, here you go. Sell them the sales tracking module and close the deal. Let's say that's a $50,000 deal.
Okay, pretty standard transaction.
Right. But a strategic rep, someone using white space analysis, looks at that exact same account and says, okay, if they are tracking their sales data, they are inevitably going to need to generate reports for their marketing team. And their field reps are probably going to need mobile access to this data while they travel. Those future needs, those are the white spaces.
So you pitch those extra solutions immediately.
You pitch the comprehensive solution, yes. You don't just push products. You sit down and say, look, I can absolutely sell you just the tracking tool today. But based on our experience, you're going to run into these other 2 massive bottlenecks in about 6 months. Let's just solve the whole architecture right now. And suddenly, that $50,000 deal becomes an $80,000 deal.
And the crazy part is, the customer is actually happier because you acted like a consultant and saved them from a huge future headache.
Exactly. You aren't price gouging them. You are increasing the value density of the deal. But, and this is the kicker, to do that successfully, you really need to deeply understand their specific business challenges.
Yeah.
You can't just guess what their white space is.
Right, you have to do the work.
You do. And you need to effectively segment your accounts so you actually know where those high-value, complex opportunities are hiding. You can't do deep white space analysis on every tiny account.
That makes total sense. Stop leaving obvious money on the table.
Okay, let's look at lever 3, win rate, the percentage.
Oh, this is a really big one. And this lever brings up a distinction from the deep dive material that I think trips up a massive amount of sales professionals. It's the difference between having a methodology versus having a sales process.
Yes. People use these two terms interchangeably all the time in meetings, but they're completely different animals.
I will fully admit I have used them interchangeably in the past. You say our process is really dialed in or our methodology is solid. It just sounds like the exact same concept to most people. What is the actual difference?
The best way to think about it is like taking a cross-country road trip. The sales process is your GPS system. It is strictly linear. It says step 1, qualification call, step 2, product demo, step 3, send proposal. It is essentially a rigid map of what you need to do and when.
Okay, so the process is just the map. Then what is the methodology?
The methodology is your actual driving skill. It's how you navigate the road. The GPS might tell you to just drive straight and turn left in 5 miles.
Yeah.
But if there is suddenly a massive roadblock or a huge storm rolls in or another car swerves into your lane, the GPS cannot help you.
That's a really good point.
Right. The methodology is the deductive framework you use to analyze the live situation,
Yeah.
look at what your competitors are doing, understand the internal politics of the buyer, and figure out how to handle the curveballs.
That is such a helpful analogy because it means you can have a totally perfect sales process. Like all your stages in Salesforce are meticulously mapped out, but if your reps do not have a strong methodology, they are basically just blind robots following a map right off a cliff the second something unexpected happens.
Exactly. They know what step to click next in the software, but they don't actually know how to win the complex human elements of the deal. To really improve your win rate, you have to introduce tactics that lean heavily on methodology, things like spotlighting.
Define that for us. What is spotlighting in this context?
It is exactly what it sounds like. It's the practice of shining a bright light on the inherent risks in a deal while that deal is still in flight. It's having the courage to ask your team, where are we currently weak against our main competitor? Or who specifically on the buying committee does not like our solution? You purposely highlight those ugly weaknesses so you can actively fix them before the deal is officially lost.
Instead of just crossing your fingers, ignoring the red flags, and hoping they magically go away.
Exactly. Hopium is not a strategy. Spotlighting is about active coaching and strategizing. It's taking proactive control of the sale rather than just passively letting the prospect drag you through their process steps. That is how you bump that win rate percentage up.
All right, that brings us to the fourth and final lever. Lever 4, the denominator, the L, the length of the sales cycle.
The denominator is honestly the silent killer of sales floors everywhere.
Why do you say it like that? Silent killer?
Because mathematically, it divides everything else you achieve. You can be absolutely spectacular at the other 3 levers. You can have huge deals and great win rates. But if your L gets too big, your velocity just crashes. If it takes you 12 months to close a deal that should normally take 3 months, you are essentially starving to death, even while holding a fully packed pipeline.
This honestly feels like the most emotional lever to pull. Because purposely shrinking the sales cycle usually means forcing salespeople to do something they absolutely hate doing.
Which is
killing deals.
Oh, the zombie deals.
Yes, exactly. The zombie. I mean, we have all been there. You have this deal sitting in the middle of your pipeline. The champion hasn't returned your emails or calls in like 6 weeks. But every Friday, you just keep manually pushing the close date back in the system. You tell your manager, he's just really busy this quarter. I'll push it to next month. You keep it on life support because you desperately want your pipeline to look full and healthy.
It is the ultimate sunk cost fallacy in action, and it completely destroys your true velocity. To actually shorten the cycle, you have to tightly align your selling process with how they actually buy. But even more importantly than that, you need a rigorous qualification framework. You have to be willing to ask the really scary questions early on.
What count as the scary questions here?
Things like, is there an actual compelling event? Meaning, is there a hard deadline where something financially or operationally bad happens to them if they don't buy your solution?
Right, creating urgency.
Exactly. Do they actually have confirmed access to funds? Or are we just hoping they find budget? Do we have real internal support from the executive sponsor?
And if the honest answer to any of those is no, or even I don't know,
then you have a choice. You either fix that gap immediately or you kill the deal and walk away.
That right there is the crucial insight of this whole lever, isn't it? Shortening the sales cycle isn't just about somehow forcing the winning deals to close faster. It's actually about losing the losers faster.
That is exactly it. If a deal is fundamentally doomed and isn't going to close, You want to find that out in week 2, not in month 6. Because if you hold on to a dead deal for 6 months before marking it closed lost, that giant number 6 goes straight into your denominator and drastically drags down your average cycle time for the entire year. By aggressively weeding out the bad deals early, you automatically speed up the math of the whole system.
It sounds like you really have to be fearless. You have to be willing to look at this fat, happy-looking pipeline and say, you know what, half of this is fake, and just delete it.
It is terrifying the first time you do it, but it is literally the only way to achieve true sales velocity. You have to clear out the clutter so you can actually focus all of your premium time and energy on the deals that are real and winnable.
Okay, so we have covered all 4 levers: opportunities, deal value, win rate, and cycle length. We definitely know the math now. But I want to zoom out for just a second as we start to wrap up, because reading through this isn't just about clever math tricks to squeeze more dollars out of accounts. There is a real philosophy underpinning all of this, right?
There is, and this is really the core of the whole Altify approach we've been looking at. None of this math actually works long-term if you view it as just manipulation or extraction. Strategic B2B selling fundamentally has to put the customer right at the center of the equation.
It's all about mutual value.
Yes, exactly. Think about everything we just discussed. White space analysis isn't about greedily upselling things people don't need. It's about proactively solving more of the customer's future problems. Profiling isn't about creeping on a company. It's about deeply understanding their specific needs so you never waste their time with irrelevant pitches.
And even qualification, it isn't just about protecting your own time as a rep. It's about respecting theirs. If you genuinely aren't a good fit for their problem, let's just figure that out today so we can both move on.
Exactly. It is never just about selling something to hit a quota. It is about creating sustainable value. And that's really what this whole approach represents. It isn't just a new methodology you read about or software you install. It represents a full-service sales transformation for an organization.
It's about building a predictable system where success is actually repeatable, not just accidental because a rep got lucky.
Right. It's about outfitting your revenue teams with this highly structured process and, more importantly, this customer-first mindset. When you finally align those two things, the velocity numbers honestly start to take care of themselves.
That is incredibly powerful. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the physics of sales, I want to leave everyone listening with a bit of a challenge. We talked a lot today about that denominator, the length of the sales cycle.
The silent killer, the number that can totally make or break your year.
Exactly. I want you to open up your CRM or your tracking spreadsheet right now. Look closely at your own denominator. Start looking for the zombies.
Find those deals that haven't actually moved a single stage in weeks.
Ask yourself, are you holding on to bad, unqualified deals just to keep your pipeline looking full for your manager? Are you actively avoiding the tough qualification questions because you are secretly scared the answer might be no?
Just remember the math we walked through today. It seems counterintuitive, but sometimes the absolute fastest way to increase your sales velocity and ultimately your actual take-home revenue is simply to say no to a prospect much sooner.
Clear out the clutter so you actually have the room and the energy for the real wins. Sarah, thank you so much for breaking down the formula and the physics with us today.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for exploring it with me.
I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Sarah.
We will see you all on the next deep dive.